It's now time for Matt and Dan in the house of
Well, a very good day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome all to the best podcast in the whole galaxy. It's Matt and Dan in the house of...
Wow. Hello, everyone.
Exactly.
Welcome back to another episode. If I was laughing at the start of that, that's because Matt just mucked up the first take.
I wasn't expecting that. Sometimes I just
yeah.
like to I don't know, I think I just like to make things up on the spot, to be honest with you.
You just like to make me laugh.
So,
Like
of
that
course,
time in college you made me choke on Coca-Cola.
I remember that. Yeah.
I will never forget that.
I nearly killed Daniel. There we go. I probably shouldn't be saying that over a podcast.
I don't even remember what you did, but I was drinking Coke.
I made him laugh while he was drinking. Yeah, and he drowned on Coke. Coca-Cola, that is.
Anyway,
so welcome everyone to Matt and Dan, a house of quark, because I'm Matt and you've got the lovely Dan as well. Hello. So you could be watching this right now on Facebook at M and DH, M and DHQ on our Facebook page. If you want to watch this, of course, you can watch the video. Hello, we're here. Or you can listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Radio Public, Breaker, and of course Overcast and Pocket Casts as well. As we of course said, Overcast is actually how you listen to Apple Podcasts. If you go on Apple Podcasts, we are on that. Okay, so just literally go on Apple Podcasts and you can find us.
Yeah.
Right, Ed, so today's episode. So episode 6 now. Episode 6, yeah. Return of the Quark. That's it. Yeah, I got it.
Return of the Quark.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you.
You thought I was going to mess it up again, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought you were.
I do like some stuff. I mean, I got BB-8 in the background, even though it's BB-8's there. He's there. I like BB-8. He's there. He's chilling next to Jake the dog. So I do like some stuff. Jake, you haven't seen Adventure Time, no? Jake the dog and Finn the human.
I know that you like Adventure Time.
Yeah, it's there. Anyway, so let's get back to Star Trek, though, right? Okay, so episode 6, what are we talking about? So today, we're actually focusing a lot on Star Trek parodies through pop culture. So it could be Star Trek references through different pop culture. So we've got different case studies that we're going to be talking about where they obviously either parody Star Trek or reference Star Trek in some shape or form. So, of course, we're going to talk about our favorite Star Trek-inspired performances. The me and Dan, we've been discussing throughout the week what ones we want to talk about, and I'm sure there'll be others as well as this podcast moves ahead. Of course, we discuss what we like about them and how they do actually resemble Trek, how we do see Trek in them. But we are going to try as well to analyze and explore the different case studies by using analytical languages, so i.e. Using terms like pastiche, parody, and satire as well. We decided to use it quite loosely, just as an easier way that we can describe it and talk about it. So we're not just saying like. We are using some kind of analytical language, so it makes it a bit easier, isn't it? So, of course, I've got here just some dictionary quotes here about what these different things mean. I've also put as well in italics, just basically summing up what it actually means to us. It's it's simpler terms. Like, okay, so parody and do you want to read this, or do you want me to read this?
If you're struggling to read it,
I know. Come on, you can read it.
A parody, an imitation of the style of a particular writer, artist, or genre with deliberate exaggeration for comic effect. So to mimic or copy, to comment on something. Then you've got pastiche, which is an artistic work in a style that imitates that of another work, artist, or period. But to mimic, I can't say it. To mimic, not commentary.
Yeah, so the idea is that might have been me actually really bad. Sometimes I'm really bad at my grammar there. So basically, the idea is to mimic, but no commentary on it. Where parody, of course, has commentary. Mimic is literally just a copy, just a mimic, isn't it? Yeah. And then satire.
Satire. The use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other topical issues. So, to mimic something generally, to comment, unlike parody, which is more direct to comment.
Exactly. So mimic is, I guess, the idea. It's more of a broad term as well, isn't it? Satire is. So it's the idea. Like a good example, I think, was the Office being a satire of the office work industry. I think another one is with the Big Bang Theory as well, isn't it? It's the idea of that sort of geek culture that I think we're sort of in. But I guess more with Big Bang Theory is geek culture, that they're obviously scientists, isn't it? That sort of idea, yeah. So yeah, I think that's it. We're using these quite loosely. I thought it's a good idea though to have the the dictionary reference there as well, just to get an idea, so the viewers know what we mean by parody, what we mean by pastiche, and of course what we mean by satire. So yeah, I'm quite excited about this actually.
Yeah, that's good.
Let's get straight into it. So oh, here we go. Problems here. Here we go. Robot Chicken.
Yes, Robot Chicken.
I love Robot Chicken, first of all, I want to say. It's one of my favorite satire programs or parody programs ever. I do think it's very clever, but we're going to focus on the Star Trek episodes, particularly, obviously. So what I'm going to do, let me play just a quick video. So if you are obviously listening to us, you can find these on YouTube. I'm just going to play them from YouTube, but if you are obviously watching now, you can watch along with us here on Facebook. So if you want to check it out, get onto our Facebook account. Right then, so this is Robot Chicken. Now this is just a video just showing sort of some Star Trek moments. So obviously we can't talk about everything because I think Robot Chicken does quite a lot of Star Trek, from what I remember.
Yeah, it has.
Just trying to narrow it down a bit more. Right then. So Robot Chicken. So that's just a taster there, of course, of Robot Chicken.
I've only seen a few of them. I've not seen those original series once.
So yeah, what we got to say about Robot Chicken?
First of all, I've only seen, like, unlike you, I haven't really seen much of the actual series of Robot Chicken. I only really know of it from, obviously, watching these Star Trek and the Star Wars ones are good as well, actually. I just it's just, you can't help but love it, even though it's like sort of taking the mick out of one of your favorite TV shows. I love the rudeness of it, and like how lewd it is, and sort of just for me it's like almost like a guilty pleasure, because I'm such a fan of Star Trek, and here they are, like these creators just sort of not necessarily taking the mick, but sort of highlighting the especially in the original series, highlighting the sort of the wackiness of Star Trek. You can't help but laugh, and for me it's almost like a guilty pleasure watching those videos, because like I say, I was such a massive fan of Star Trek, and like it's sort of this holy grail of TV shows, but yet I just love watching sort of videos like that. Just what I love about what Robot Chicken does is the clips are just so short, and it sort of, do you know what I mean? They're so short, and they just like ravel on after each other.
Yeah. Well, what Robot Chicken is normally, obviously, it doesn't really just focus on Star Trek. Obviously, an episode would be all different pop culture references, all stuff like.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So there would be a Star Trek scene. There would be a Star Wars scene. Maybe something to do with Donald Trump or a American politician or anything like that. I mean, me personally, what I love about Robot Chicken is the animation itself as well. Like it uses stop motion animation. It's the idea of using action figures, and to me as well, parodying, I don't know, or mimicking the same mimicking Star Trek, obviously, is the idea of using action figures. Just to me, just works really nicely, because it's the idea of, I don't know, when I see them sort of obviously children play with toys, but it's kind of the idea of like I don't know, you can even imagine like myself. I mean, I've got some Star Trek action figures that I do collect, but it's the idea of them sort of coming to life and sort of playing around with that. And to me, that I don't know, to me that just gets another element to it, and I just think it's hilarious. And again, it's this sort of geeky culture in it. You know, it's the idea of you know, you're mocking the sci-fi show, but with, you know, toys, basically action figures. You know, you're playing around with it, which I think is yeah, great the way it does that. I mean, I definitely say, obviously looking at the definitions that we talked about, definitely a parody. It definitely parodies, say, obviously Captain Kirk, the idea that he is a sleazeball. Basically, he's a sleazy man that sleeps around all of the galaxy. I mean, it got to the point where he actually had, obviously, sexually transmitted diseases, and he has to go around and, you know, say you might want to get yourself tested, which works brilliantly, you know. And especially the start as well with the sound effects, just taking, like I said, it mimics. They're mimicking themselves, like, you know, the idea there's these toys, which is what I love about it. So anyway, the stop animation toys that are mimicking the program, and then in some ways Hot Chicken is not a great production in itself. It's just toys, as I said. That's what I like about it, but it is just toys. But the idea is mimicking it's sort of spoofing a sci-fi show of the bad sound effects, or, you know, and this it's again, it's just as brilliant as
Yeah, for me as well. Like it's kind of like yeah, definitely a parody, like you say, and it's like kind of like it's commenting on like how obviously with Kirk and stuff, like the guy who was voicing Kirk, like because William Shatner was sort of you know, not criticized but sort of brought up on his sort of wood. He was said to have like wooden acting in his voice.
yeah.
Like the guy voicing it on Robot Chicken, you can definitely tell that he's exaggerating that and sort of
Yeah.
you know, taking a mick out of that, sort of parodying his voice and like you know, mannerisms and stuff.
No, 100%, yeah.
In a wooden way, you know. Not
Yeah.
that I disagree with that. I don't think he was wooden or anything.
No. But I think that whether or not you agree he was wooden or anything, I think when someone does parody it, you can't help but laugh, because even though you may or may not agree with it, it sort of becomes Star Trek. You know, it's part of Star Trek. You know, everyone goes Khan and all that.
Yeah, exactly,
even you know, we all do it. You know,
there is a Khan one that I watched a Khan.
There is, yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
Which is quite funny. It's sort of him working in a cafe or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I know. Yeah.
He drops the coffee and he's like, Khan. Yeah, that's an interesting point though, because like you say, we all do that. So we are parodying.
Well, there's I know it's hard to word that one, isn't it? But anyway, it's I was gonna say it's like there's a Star Trek game I think someone started online. It's obviously a joke, but I mean I have played it. Well, it's not a game as such. It's just a little joke that sort of got around the internet, and I've done it before on the ship. A friend of mine called Andy, who's a Star Trek fan, and it's you play Shatner. So the idea is that you do something or you say something, but then someone shouts Shatner, so you have to do it but overact it. I don't know if you ever played that game.
Yeah.
So you go Shatner, and then you go whoa, you know.
And that's, I mean, you can, and that's what sort of things like Robot Chicken does. It kind of just.
And I think that's important. I mean, sometimes parody necessarily isn't. I mean, we'll get into this a bit more, obviously, as we go through the case studies. But you'll see, parody isn't, I think, just making a comment on that person, as in, you know, they're a bad person. I mean, I can understand, obviously, through a lot of comedians do it about like politicians, and they'll parody, you know, Donald Trump, Sarah Palin, Boris Johnson, or whatever, and they'll parody them to make them look silly or whatever. And that's obviously a political message there. But I think parody is also a way of, I don't know, it's sort of celebrating someone as well, isn't it? You know?
I guess, I mean, like I was saying, it's sort of like, I'm such a big fan of, like, for me, it's like the Holy Grail, but I can appreciate the sort of how funny you can make something. Like, you can, you know, exaggerate it and sort of, yeah, just it is okay to like
Yeah.
take the mick out of it sometimes. Sort of, it's not exactly like you're pointing flaws in it, like saying, "Oh, you know, this is wrong, this is wrong." It's just sort of, you know, William Shatner
Yeah,
falling
William
down.
Shatner. Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it's not. Yeah, like you say, it's not. You know, highlighting any flaws. It's just sort of
Yeah.
making light of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think the brilliant, especially the Robot Chicken one, is and the others that we're going to get onto, but definitely Robot Chicken is the rudeness and sort of the provocative sort of storylines. You sort of go, oh, yeah, you know, you wouldn't sort of,
Yeah.
you know, sort of the idea of the Enterprise crew getting a rectal exam. It's just, you know,
I
like
like
I say,
the urinals as well. The urinals.
yeah, the urinals, yeah. It's just so sort of like, yeah, I can't I can't think of the word, but it's so like I say, it is a guilty pleasure just to watch those
Yeah.
sort of moments, sort of, you know what I mean? You can
And
appreciate the
yeah.
provocativeness of it.
And I was going to say that, you know, we talked about, obviously, well I said about them being toys as well. I think it helps a lot with it. I think it's the idea, it is like playing around with it, isn't it? Just literally, and they are literally
Yeah.
playing. They're playing with toys. That's why yeah. No, it's great. I think, do
It's
you want
a
to
good way-
watch? Sorry, what was you going to say?
I just said it's a good way of looking at it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not meant to be taken serious. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's just, you know, sort of, you can appreciate it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, no, definitely.
Rather than go, oh, why are you taking the mick out of my favorite
Yeah.
TV shows? Yeah, that is actually quite funny. You know,
But yeah, like I said, I think it celebrates it, definitely.
yeah, definitely celebrates it. Yeah.
Do you want to watch the clip from? Because we were talking about, obviously, the TNG one, weren't we?
Yeah.
The night
That's why-
crew. Because me and Dan had a bit of a debate on this. We did, so that'll be quite interesting to go into that. So let's. I've got it here. Let's. No, I think we did a little bit of a debate, so it's good to
Yeah,
debate. Hang on, let me just get it ready. Okay. Right, and so what we're gonna do now, folks, we're gonna play. There's a TNG scene now from Robot
This is
Chicken.
another Robot Chicken.
It's another Robot Chicken. Yeah, yeah. It's just a quick one. So yeah, I think we were talking about this, wasn't we?
I love it. It's my
Yeah.
favorite. Obviously, it's the like I said, I've not seen the original series Robot Chicken, but I'd say that's quite my favorite. Night Crew.
See,
Yeah.
me personally, I think the start was a parody, as in, so you had obviously a parody of well, Captain Picard. The idea he's fantasizing over Crusher. But then I think it's become me personally. I think it then becomes satire, becomes pastiche, as in, because it just sort of mimics, obviously, Star Trek. So the Star Trek, you know, as in the uniforms and everything, and obviously the bridge, and it just sort of adds on to the world to make a funny scene, if you know what I mean. So it uses elements from Star Trek, as in the Borg, obviously working on the bridge, traveling through space. So I think that is just mimicking that. But me personally, I wouldn't say parody as such, because I don't think it's directed at anyone particularly. I mean, I guess you could see, you know, a particular character maybe, or a particular actor, or anyone it may be maybe commenting on. But I personally think it's more pastiche, and it is obviously a comedy and it's funny. And in a way, it does take the Mickey out of Star Trek. But then I think it's sort of, it opens just up a new another level, I guess, to it. So it makes you think, what if Star Trek had a night crew? What would they be like? And it's just obviously an over exaggerated version, the idea that they're all party animals and they, you know, they can deal with the Borg by getting drunk, you know, and all that. And so that's why I think it's just funny just talking about this. But that's why I think it's more pastiche in a way. It's just using Star Trek and using that idea and using the fans' sort of knowledge of what Star Trek's all about to make humor, if that makes sense.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I definitely, I think, to be honest, it is a bit of both. I think,
Yeah,
from what you just said, yeah, definitely more pastiche than pastiche, or how you say it. I just think it is more of a pastime. Uh, I don't know. I think it is more of a parody, in that, like like you say, you've got obviously obviously the Picard thing and that, but you've also got sort of Geordie sort of just tapping buttons, and it's like, you know what I mean? And it's sort of
yeah.
Worf with an afro and like sort of and like sort of with the shirt that he's wearing and stuff. It's kind of just, I think it's just commenting on, again, like sort of not acting ability, but sort of just the way they are in the show, sort of just randomly pushing buttons and stuff, and it's like you got all these buttons on the dials and stuff.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. No, it definitely parodies on. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's definitely a parody on that. That's something I didn't really think about, but yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah.
No, I definitely think it's a bit of both, to be honest. It does have fun with it. It does. It does take TNG and does have fun with it. And yeah, it definitely is a bit of both. It's sort of just like I said before, it is just sort of a you're allowed to appreciate the funniness of you know what I mean? And but I think I agree with you that it is pastiche, but I would also say it is a bit of parody as well.
Elements of parody in that scene as well. Yeah.
It is sort of commenting on sort of the nature of Star Trek, I guess, and sort of like it doesn't have a night crew, but
but if it did, what would it be like, which I think in some ways what Lower Decks is going to be like, in sort of, in some way, it's going to be a bit more sort of parties going on, or because they obviously at the moment, what I'm imagining about Lower Decks is coming out next month, can't wait. It's going to be a bit more about probably younger members of the crew, so younger members possibly going to be single, they're going I just imagine they're a bit more outgoing than old Captain Picard and all that. It's a bit more and less responsibilities. So it'd be interesting to see what they.
Sorry, go on.
No, God. I was just saying. I think it'd be interesting to see how in a way, I think it's going to be not necessarily like that, obviously, because Robot Chicken proper emphasizes everything and is all obviously exploded. But it'd be quite interesting if it's going to be kind of like that idea of crew members or someone who works, of course, on the Enterprise being a bit wild, or a bit more like uni fresh this week.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. But no, what I love in that is that Patrick Stewart voices his own character. The way it's sort of parodying himself, which I think is a great aspect, and he does it in obviously other shows that we're going to get onto later on in the podcast. But I just think that it's great that Patrick Stewart, he has a great sense of humor anyway, Patrick Stewart. I think he's voicing parody pastiche of a show that he's best known for. I think is just a great element of it, and that's what makes you sort of appreciate it, and sort of that's what makes you allow yourself to find it funny that it is like Patrick Stewart just sort of going, that is I do that. I am like that. I am the bald guy. I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100% agree.
I think it's really funny. I think it's really funny that I think it's even better when like they get because there's others that we're going to talk about that like actors voice their own characters rather than I mean,
and like you said, it's just become, I think, especially sci-fi spoofs are mainly sort of celebrating it, really, aren't they? Then like I said, mocking it. It's not like it's not a political mock. It's not a like a satire comic in a newspaper or whatever. It is actually it's celebrating it, isn't it? Most people, Seth Green, I'm sure, is a Star Trek fan. It's
it probably is.
Yeah. Well, he's good mates with McFarlane as well, isn't he? We'll get onto in a bit, but yeah, he's good mates with. He's Chris, isn't he, in Family Guy? I think. Is Chris? Yeah, he's Chris, isn't he?
Well, yeah, he's Chris. Yeah, but I think that's that's the only character he does, because obviously the others do multiple characters. I think that's the only character that Seth Green does.
Well, talking about Family Guy, we've got Family Guy. Of course, Mr. Seth MacFarlane, as we know, is a big Trekkie.
Big Trek.
He appears, of course, on Enterprise. We've seen him on there. He also has another show. We're not going to name it right now because we're going to get to that one. But there's another show he does. I'm sure you all know what we're talking about. We're going to get to that a bit later. But yeah,
You probably do.
yeah. But yeah, Family Guy. So off we watched a video first. I think about Family Guy. Watch a clip from Family Guy. Obviously, that is definitely a parody of William Shatner. Obviously, like I said, his wooden acting style, everything's over the top. It even emphasized, I think, as he got a bit older, he got a little bit more chubby, but that's because his old age. Really. Yeah. I think he really obviously plays on that as well. So yeah, I think obviously 100% a parody there of William Shatner, and again, as Star Trek fans, I just think we just find it hilarious, you know.
Yeah, again, and the other thing I noticed as well, with when he chooses the guy to go on the away mission with the red sort of parried in the fact that it was always red. What are they called? Red tunics.
Yeah. Well, the red shirts, and I know what you mean.
Red shirts. I wanted to say red coats, but they're the people that work in Butlins.
Yeah, that's it. I was someone who worked at Butlins.
Yeah. I didn't want to
that's why I was a blue coat, see, because I didn't want to be a red coat because I was a Star Trek fan. But again, I know what you're saying there. I think what he's done, he's parried on that. You know, he's used that as a way of parodying Star Trek, and also in a way, it's an Easter egg for fans. Like, not many people might not even get that joke, you know, but we get that joke. We laughed at that because we know that the red shirts, well, in the original series anyway, they always ended up dying. I mean, there's loads of memes all over the internet of, like, you know, parodies of, I know there's one about, I know you didn't really watch it much, but Game of Thrones, basically. So Game of Thrones, a lot of people died in it, you know, and it was, the idea was everyone in Game of Thrones wore a red shirt. So if I said that to you, they're all red shirts, you'd know exactly what I was talking about. Whereas someone else would be like, what's he on about? You know, so I like the fact how Seth is a big Star Trek fan, and he really highlights that in his parodies. Like, he does things that only Star Trek fans would probably will understand, you know. I mean, I think, yeah. Sorry, Kyle.
I think that's why we enjoy it, because it is those sort of Easter eggs that sort of make us enjoy it more, because we are fans of it, and it's you know, the Easter egg type ones are the better ones, rather than sort of just a generic pastiche of a sci-fi series. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think a lot of people can relate to William Shatner. I think that's become a big thing. William Shatner's being all over dramatic. Everyone seems to, but like, definitely you throw in the red shirt quotes and all that.
Yeah.
I think. It's nice. It's brilliant. Yeah. There's another Family Guy episode I wanted to play as well. So this one is when Stewie builds himself a transporter and actually gets the TNG cast to his house. So let's watch that. I think that's a good one. I think we just watch them because we enjoy them, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's Star Trek, isn't it? So it's.
So let's have a look. See. That's possibly my favorite one, to be honest.
Yeah, I just love it because it is the actual actor's voice, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what
I mean, personally, again, I personally see this as more pastiche, as in it's just copied, you know, well, basically just copied them actors for who they really are. As I said, they actually voice them themselves, and they're just interacting. Obviously, there's a funny script of it. I understand that, and in some ways, it does use parody to emphasize some of the relationships and some of the things they may say. You know, the relationship between Patrick Stewart, obviously, and Will Wheaton, you know, as well. But however, to me, it's just the idea of just them being themselves and interacting in the Family Guy world. You know what I mean? And and to me that's just funny. I mean, it'd be interesting. I don't know. I like to kind of see someone who doesn't know much at all about Star Trek watch that and see how they respond to it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure they'll laugh at some things, but like, like what's her name? I always forget her name. The woman who played Tasha, obviously. Uh, yeah, Crosby, who obviously get shocked. 'Cause obviously, she literally dies like in is it series 1 or 2? It's
Yeah,
really,
the
isn't
end
it?
series one, wasn't it?
Yeah, But then it's what's interesting about her as well. She became sort of like a massive part of TNG, even though she was only in like a few episodes and then she dies, isn't she? And I think it kind of plays on that. But me and you, we get that. We understand that. We understand the relationship between Will Wheaton and all that, and Patrick Stewart. We get all that stuff, and Geordie obviously with the visor and all that. Whereas I can imagine, like non-Star Trek fans not really. I don't know. I said they'll find bits funny, obviously, because there are some funny bits in it, as in not just on Star Trek, but there are things I think they would miss. So that's for me. I think it is more pastiche, as in it's just he's literally giving you what it is. It is just the cast of TNG in Family Guy, and they're interacting with Stewie, and they're doing normal things, as just go into McDonald's or wherever they will go into, in the drive-through. And then you think about it, they're just saying normal, but I think it's just like, oh my god, look, it's Jonathan Frakes ordering something, and I mean, it just makes you laugh, just them being themselves. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, and I think it's brilliant because it's and to me, I think that is more pastiche. They're just in there. It's obviously funny because they're there, but it's just funny, I think, because it's in the Family Guy world. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Yeah.
I definitely agree with you that it's pastiche, but it is pretty funny to sort of Family Guy is known for being a parody and sort of being satirical, so it is nice to see sort of watch them in that setting. For me, it's just great to see sort of like the holodeck, not the holodeck, the transporter pad sort of in a cartoon version. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's things like that, like the cartoon version of Geordie's visor, or do you know what I mean? It's quite cool to see that sort of stuff that like you sort of imagining. I mean, it's obviously when Lower Decks comes out, we're going to get it, but it is quite nice sort of imagining what sort of like the animated versions of sort of certain props or the ships and stuff. I just think that I get a lot out of that, really.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I think, like you said, that I think we're both on sort of the same wavelength. I think it's the idea of what it'll look like. I mean, using like I said, the transporter room or Geordie's visor, and it's in cartoon form, isn't it? And I think obviously again, like Robot Chicken obviously was more stop motion animation with toy. This is more the term is cell animation, so it's more obviously a drawing, isn't it? It's a caricature sort of thing, And I think it's like I said, pastiche. It's literally a caricature of these celebrities that we know, obviously from our favorite TV show, and they're just put into this caricature world. But I wouldn't say it's really it's a parody as such. It's not comment on anything of them. I mean, there are elements of parody in there. I think it comments. I said the relationship between
because it's Family Guy, and you said, it's known for being a parody.
Exactly, but I think the actual composition of that scene or that episode is mainly pastiche. It's there to plot them in that world and just see how they interact with the Family Guy universe out of Star Trek. If that makes sense. Yeah.
What I love as well is it's Stewie that takes them out for the day.
Yeah.
One obviously voiced by Seth MacFarlane, so massive. Seth MacFarlane voices Stewie, and Stewie's like a little kid, and it's almost sort of like a little kid. But it is like for us like a fanboy sort of getting the chance to. You know what I mean? The chance to sort of meet his favorite, characters, and I think it wouldn't have worked if it was like Chris or or Peter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sort of like the sort of the childish aspect of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, which I
Like
think
the episode's not childish, just the fact
no.
that it's Stewie. That's, do you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly
Yeah.
what you're trying to say. Yeah, I think it's kind of like it's kind of like for us as well. It is that sort of, I think when you love a TV show, you still do have kind of a childish sort of approach to it. You know, what I mean, you do get
well, because obviously, like we grew up, like especially we grew up watching Star Trek, so from a young age. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think it would be different if someone who got into Star Trek at a later age, find it as couldn't appreciate it more.
No, I 100% see where you're coming at. Yeah. No, definitely. So yeah, that's Family Guy, and I think again, just hilarious. Really, it's so funny, brilliant. Right then, so let's have a look at the old PowerPoint. At the old.
What are we talking about next?
What are we talking about next? So next, a little bit different now. So where we come out of animation, because of course we focused on, they say we had stop motion animation and we had cell animation, and now we're on live action. So now we're going to actually see people what they are. Yeah. So Galaxy Quest, of course, written by a man called David Howard. Of course, well, it's a fantastic film. I hope a lot of you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, please watch it, especially if you're a Star Trek fan or a sci-fi lover. It is absolutely brilliant. So what we're going to do now, I think we're going to watch the trailer so we can introduce some of it to you, or for some of you, of course, you just need to recap what it's all about. All right, and so let's watch the trailer.
In the far reaches of the galaxy, a civilization is under siege.
We are all that is left.
They've searched the universe for a leader.
Stay tuned for scenes from next week's Galaxy Quest.
Never give up, never surrender.
He will save us.
What they got
Never give up and never surrender.
were struggling TV actors.
You are our last hope.
Where's my limo?
Okie dokie.
And they're about to put on a command performance 8 million light years away.
We are actors, not astronauts.
You are our protectors.
That was a hell of a thing.
Now,
Laredo, take us out.
You gotta move to the right.
Would you sit your ass down? You want to drive this to...
acting like heroes,
The whole thing was just a misunderstanding.
may not be enough.
They look like little children. Hi, little guy.
Oh, darn.
DreamWorks Pictures presents Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman, Galaxy Quest.
You're just gonna have to kill him.
Well, go for the mouth, the throat, his vulnerable spots.
It's a rock. It doesn't have any vulnerable spots.
Galaxy Quest. First of all, do we love it?
I mean, I didn't even realize this film existed until you mentioned it, and until we obviously were discussing sort of certain episodes to do. I watched this yesterday. I absolutely loved it. It was great. It was great.
I think no. As I said, I think it was just hilarious. You know, I think great cast in it. First of all, fantastic production overall. You know, brilliant. Definitely up there on my. I'd say one of my top comedy films, you know, that I like to watch, and that's definitely up there. I really do like that one. I mean, as when it comes to using our terms, I would say I like to use the term satire as the production overall. As in, to me, I see it as sort of a satire on the sort of I guess the the science fiction celebrity culture, if that makes sense. So it's the idea
Yeah,
of
and not just the celebrity culture, just
yeah, yeah,
sci-fi,
the
sci-fi
sci-fi,
in general.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
just Star Trek. I think it has elements of
Yeah, definitely. But I think with the celebrity culture part of it, though, I think I'm trying to get at is the idea of they are sort of still, living their career is all about a program, a television show that they did 15 years ago, and they're still doing events or doing different projects that revolves around their old job, basically. Which I think is definitely highlights on that, like the idea of they could be like, well, there's a nice scene with what's Alan Rickman, and Alan Rickman, obviously he's got all the makeup on. He's like in a way the Vulcan character. In a way, you could say he is a parody of Spock in some shape or form, couldn't you? Really. But I think it's the idea of he always saw himself as I guess a Shakespearean actor. Like there's a quote he talks about how, I used to be in Hamlet. I used to do all this. I used to do all these big shows, and now I'm doing this quote over and over again, because throughout the film as well, he is I can't remember what it was, but basically he has to say a certain line over and over again just to get a round of applause or to endorse. Because there's a scene, isn't it, when they're opening a some sort of store, and he has to say the line, and he's dreading it. He's like, oh, I don't want to say this line anymore. But that's but then the fans all eat it up, like me and you, basically, where they're like, oh yeah, is it real? Is it? Oh, in that episode, did you do that? And then he's just there like, oh God, get a life, man. Which is quite interesting because William Shatner actually did a documentary. I actually haven't seen it yet, but it's a documentary actually titled "Get a Life," where it's about people like us, basically, that need to just get a life, So I think it definitely, well, is a satire of that sort of world.
I think it's things like that that sort of make it. Yeah, obviously, I agree with you, but I also think it's things like that that kind of makes it a pastiche, in that there are sort of in the film there is these catchphrases and sort of you got like Tim Allen as basically the Captain Kirk saying these famous lines, and it's sort of it's like a pastiche of famous lines from Star Trek, like "Live long and prosper," or I'm sure Leonard Nimoy had that a lot. Sort of people going up to him in the street and going, "Live long and prosper," and getting asked to do because Alan Rickman gets asked by fans a lot to do his thing, isn't it?
Yeah. No, yeah, right.
I'm
Yeah.
sure Nimoy had that, or I'm sure William Shatner had his sort of do this, or do you know what I mean? So I think it's elements like that that does make it a pastiche, that it's got those, because it's not really taking the mick, but it's not commenting on it. It's just saying it is sort of highlighting, I guess.
Yeah.
These actors would have had that, and it's like putting it in the TV show as well, not just sort of with the aspect of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Agree, because I can imagine, because Leonard Nimoy, interesting point. When we talk about Leonard Nimoy, he actually, I can't remember what his book was called. His book something like "I Am and I Am Not Spock" or something, isn't it? So there's the idea that I haven't read it, his autobiography, and it's the idea that yes, I am Spock, but I'm also not Spock. Spock's not real.
It's interesting you should say that, because I actually watched a this isn't part of our list, so I'm allowed to say it.
Yeah, go for it.
I actually watched I mean, you could probably find it, but I actually watched a video of Simpsons references, and there's one where comic book guy goes to the library and gets a load of books, and he's like, he sort of lists the books that he's got to the librarian, and he's like, yes, I've got Leonard Nimoy's "I Am Spock," Leonard Nimoy's "I Am Not Spock," and then he goes, Leonard Nimoy's "I Am Also George Takei," or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you should say that that's like what Leonard Nimoy's autobiography is called, and there's that
Yeah.
Simpsons reference to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's it's a really really good point, and I think Leonard Nimoy is the perfect example. Like we were talking about yesterday, the relationship between Spock is it Spock and William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. I think it kind of parodies on that in a way as well. There's an element of parody in there.
Parody, isn't it? Yeah, because that was quite. I guess that's quite a well-known thing, isn't it? That they didn't always
have a love-hate relationship sort of thing, isn't it? They got on, but at the same time, it was like, oh, is he really going to go on about that all the time, or and it's it's
because there's obviously reports of sort of I've always read reports or interviews of sort of like when they were making the original series, like when William Shatner would say to the directors, sort of, instead of having the camera on all of us, it should just be on me. And you can see that in Galaxy Quest. You know what I mean?
Well, apparently William Shatner had a lot to do with editing, like you said, with On Me, and like for instance, if it was like a female character would enter the scene, he always suggested it should be Captain's reaction. The idea he's the one who gets all the women. I think as well the interracial kiss. Apparently, what I read someone before, it was meant to be Leonard Nimoy at first, and then William Shatner was like, whoa.
I remember you telling me.
First interracial kiss should be the captain, and it was obviously the captain. In some ways, I'm happy it was the captain. I think it was better as the captain personally, but yeah, you can see a bit of rivalry there between the two. But me personally, I mean, I usually agree with me. You can't go one without the other. You need them both there, and they both make Star Trek. And but yeah,
and it's interesting with Galaxy Quest because it's all three of them really. It has elements of parody, prestige, and satire, like you've been saying.
Definitely, yeah.
There's quite a few. One thing that I like to do after watching a film, because I'm, I like reading stuff, is going on IMDb, sort of looking at the trivia section of it, and I've just got a few ones, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So, like early on in the film, where Tim Allen, they're at the Comic-Con, and he goes into the toilet and he hears those. He's in the toilet and he in the cubicle, and he overhears some random people sort of going, sort of ridiculing, fans and sort of sci-fis and sort of. Do you remember the scene?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
That's actually based on an experience William Shatner had.
I didn't actually know about that. Okay, this is interesting.
That actually happened to William Shatner. He was, somewhere, and he overheard sort of people going, "Oh, they're just actors," and sort of in a, washed up TV series that nobody cares about anymore. Blah blah blah. And I mean that's not quoting. I'm not.
Yeah.
Somewhere along those lines, which I found was quite interesting. That's why I wrote it down.
That's a really interesting fact. So it is literally, in a way, Galaxy Quest is kind of verbatim in a way as well, as in it's documented in a way, as in not.
Yeah.
It takes it straight from the horse's mouth, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it actually, puts it in the film.
There's quite a few others as well like that, actually. Another one is J.J. Abrams, who's obviously director of the Kelvin universe, has said that it was somewhere along the lines of everybody's favorite Star Trek film is Galaxy Quest, which I found. That's not the actual quote, but he said something along those lines, which just made me laugh.
Yeah.
It is sort of, it is like a live action sort of Star Trek, I guess, isn't it?
It's weird, but I think people. I mean, because Star Trek's not the only space exploration program in the world, obviously, but everything seems to be a parody of space exploration, of Star Trek in some shape or form. It seems people always compare it to Star Trek. I mean, obviously you had Lost in Space and all those sort of programs as well, but everyone always goes to Star Trek. I mean. The amount of people, who don't know much about sci-fi and try and make comments on Star Wars, and they always end up saying Star Trek instead on accident, or they, you know what I mean, or they reference Star Trek on accidents, or it is, Even like,
I
for instance, Star Trek and Star Wars are completely different films, completely different franchises. Like, I generally, the only thing similar, obviously, is that they're science fictions.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there's always been this whole rivalry, or and in a way, and some people argue that Star Wars, I guess, if when for Star Trek, would be no Star Wars and all this, and which obviously there is influences in there, of course, but yeah, if you know what I mean, it always seems to be like a pastiche or parody of Star Trek, which makes it quite very iconic.
Yeah, it goes back to what we've been saying, I think, pretty much throughout every episode, is highlighting the fact that there's a long-lasting legacy of Star Trek. So popular, and it's, the legacy is going to continue on and on and on.
Yeah, definitely.
I just there's a few more. I won't.
No, go for it. I'm really liking these. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this wasn't on an IMDb. This is just something I noted down, that obviously Tim Allen is basically a homage to Kirk, or the character that he was playing. And I just love the word homage, because I think a lot of what we've been watching so far, and obviously what we're going to talk about, and obviously Galaxy Quest is obviously, it's parody, satire, pastiche, and all this. So it is, like we've been saying, it's a homage to Star Trek. And I mean, obviously there is one that we're going to get onto, which I think is quite a nice homage to it. But
definitely,
I just wrote down that word because I think it's a good way of sort of summing up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so I was going to say, well, the DVD, I got the DVD here, and the DVD, I think it actually says the slogan is a spoof, or a sci-fi spoof. And obviously a spoof, I mean, if you look that in the dictionary, which I did, because I want to say, what is a spoof? When someone says a spoof, when people say spoof, I always think I know what it means, but it's good to look things up, I think, as well. And spoof is basically a funny version of something. And I think it is definitely a funny version of Star Trek, isn't it?
And that's why I like things like that, because it is like I said about Robot Chicken. It's like, this is like, it is my favorite. It is the holy grail of sort of sci-fi for me. It's one of my favorite TV shows, but I do like there is a satisfaction you get out of watching funny versions of it. Do you know what I mean? Sort of versions of it. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. Some others that similar to the William Shatner thing. I almost wasn't going to say this one, but I think it is quite important to point out, is the Sigourney Weaver character, Gwen DeMarco.
Yeah.
The character who Sigourney Weaver plays. Early on in the film, she says something about having an interview with TV Guide, and they only wanted to focus on her breasts.
I shouldn't laugh, but yeah.
No. Well, I kind of
yeah.
I wasn't going to say it because I kind of feel uncomfortable saying this one.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It was actually based on something Jerry Ryan said. Jerry Ryan, who played Seven of Nine. Obviously, I don't know if she is a model, but as well. But that actually happened to Jerry Ryan.
Really?
Yeah. She gave an interview with, I don't know if it was TV Guide, so I'm not going to say that it was, but obviously they just wanted to focus on her,
The reason I laughed, by the way, because I wouldn't expect you to say that. So I was like, what?
Well, in the film, she says boobs, but I thought I'd use.
Yeah, no. I know exactly what you mean. No, I was just
like I said, I don't want to say it's quite.
No. We're not. I'm sure the listeners understand. We're not. We're just saying that we're saying the facts here. Obviously, what happened to these
so
70s.
Again, going back to the thing about the William Shatner bathroom scene, it's sort of taking experiences from the actors and sort of.
Yeah. Well, I think again that you said that it being a spoof, it being pastiche of Star Trek, and especially the Star Trek cast and the celebrity culture within Star Trek, and it is sort of become. I mean, Star Trek in some ways hasn't helped itself. I mean, in a way, they made even the Borg Queen a bit sexual in some ways. Do you know what I mean? They had this, and it's interesting with Star, because obviously Star Trek, we had the idea of equality, and obviously men and women are equal, and obviously Janeway shows up, but then also there's still this essence of sexism, as in it does sort of show a male gaze for it, doesn't it? As in female actors or actresses, whatever, in Star Trek are sort of put in these like short skirts and in a way are sexualized up for the fans. Which I mean, as men, we may not see it like that as much, but I guess when you do take a step back, it's like, well, actually, is that equality now? I don't know. Or is that for the fans? Is that to make the money, And I think the Borg Queen sort of does sort of play on that, is the idea of because they did sort of make her, especially in the films, quite sexual in a weird way, the Borg Queen, So I definitely think. I mean, obviously, you look back at the original series. Well, the Cage episode, the pilot that didn't actually make it, that originally had a character called Number One, who was a woman in trousers, and she didn't show any flesh really. She was just a part of the crew, and that was it. And apparently the producers said you can't have a show like that. America or the world, whatever, will not accept a TV program where women are not sexy, basically, on TV. And I think that's the interesting point, especially what you said there as well, that she was, that's like 7 or 9. I talked about her breasts and the way she looks more than her acting talent, because she's a very talented actor, and they're focusing on the way she looks. So again, I think that's a good kind of a parody, really, or again, a satire of that sort of community. That is a problem that we have, is that that we are focusing on the sexual thing more than, like I said, that Star Trek is a sexy program. It is. It has got that in it. But is that a problem? You know what I mean? And I think that's interesting to point out there. So definitely, I'm happy you shared that quote. Yeah.
Oh, good. I mean, there's quite a few others. I'll say them quickly. The serial number on the ship. The name of the ship now has gone out of my head, but the serial number, the first 3 letters are NTE. Apparently, that was supposed to stand for Not the Enterprise.
Really?
Yeah, which I found was quite. Another one which I quite liked was the rock monsters that Tim Allen has to fight in the film.
Yeah.
Well, apparently William Shatner actually wanted rock monsters for an episode, or an episode where there were rock monsters in the original series, which was quite interesting.
Okay, so they actually delivered his dream then, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, there was loads. Like I said, one thing I like to do after watching a film, because I'm sad, is looking at trivia about the film.
Yeah.
So I mean, the last thing I've written down is, I guess in a way is, it could be a pastiche, or it could just be a general thing. Is the main bad guy, Saris? I think he has an eye patch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you remember Undiscovered Country, the original series film, Star Trek 6, in the Undiscovered Country, one of the Klingons has an eye patch.
Yeah.
I just thought that was quite a nice sort of, comparison, I guess.
Yeah.
So, there's, like I say, I mean, if you read IMDb, there's loads of.
So it has literally, like you said, the whole eye patch thing, and different elements, again, to do with reality and the fictional side of Star Trek. It's kind of like a Star Trek pastiche collage, isn't it? I would say.
Yeah.
It's
a really good analogy. Yeah.
Chucking all bits in there. Yeah. I would say.
I think we both definitely recommend Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say that one more thing about Galaxy Quest. I think I just like the idea that it's got this sort of like meta film element in it as well. Like the idea, obviously, it's obviously set, say, in the States somewhere. The sci-fi actors doing the same thing, going to conventions, signing the autographs, listening to all the fans, blah blah blah, and then suddenly their fictional world becomes reality, and they actually got to think about all the things they learned from their characters on the film and use that to actually save the world. And it's a beautiful moment, I think, when he actually has to ask a fan for help, because the fans read into it so much more than the celebrities. I mean, I can't find. I was talking to someone before, because as you know, I wrote my dissertation on Star Trek, and I ended up having a bit of a vibe with this guy in university, and he was telling me about an interview that William Shatner did. I still can't find it anywhere, but I love to watch it. Apparently, well, this is what he says. It's not William Shatner. So it was it's Patrick Stewart. It was Patrick Stewart was there, and a fan asks him a question, but it's to do with obviously Star Trek, not necessarily the composition or whatever. It's about the fictional world of Star Trek, which only fans seem to really care about. Like me and you do, like the style of ship or the class of ship, wherever. I mean, I don't think William Shatner knows that, by the way, but you know what I mean? It's one of them things, really. Yeah. And they ask him a question, and then Patrick Stewart just goes, "What the hell are you talking about?" But I quite like this whole, like you said, this meta cinema sort of element in it, which it sort of brings those two worlds together in a way that the celebrities have to actually, well, take it more seriously, the program, in a way, and to actually save the world. It's not just a TV program anymore; it's actually life or death, And then they work with the fans in order to accomplish it.
Yeah. I mean, expanding on that point as well, what I would also say is that Sigourney Weaver's in it, and as we know, Sigourney Weaver was in another well-known sci-fi franchise, Alien.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that she's come from a well-known sci-fi show and she's in a film that sort of is a satire of sci-fi, I guess.
And great. Again, I'm sure she's experienced it herself at conventions. Yeah, exactly. And yeah.
So, no, watch Galaxy Quest. It's good.
Yeah, 100%. If you haven't watched it, watch it. If you have watched it, watch it again. It's good.
And let us know what you think if you have watched it.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can message us on our Facebook as well, or whatever. We can. We'll definitely get back to you. Right then. So let's. We're going to move on now.
Yep.
To the next one. On to the next one. Okay. So of course we talked about Galaxy Quest. All right then. So next we're going to talk about a personal favorite, well, parody, whatever, pastiche of mine of the Star Trek universe, and that is USS Callister, which is an episode from Black Mirror. Black Mirror, of course, did start off as a Channel 4 program and then eventually went over to Netflix a couple of years ago. And it's created by a comedian I love, dearest to my heart, Mr. Charlie Brooker. You fan of Charlie Brooker at all?
I wouldn't say a fan, just because I don't really know much of his stuff. I'm sure that if I looked into him, I would. I'd never seen. I mean, this is the only Black Mirror episode that I've seen, and obviously to watch it I watched it in preparation for doing this episode. So I wouldn't say that I'm a fan because obviously I don't know his work. So I'm sure if I looked into his work, maybe I would be, wouldn't be. I do know that he's married to, or he was married to, I don't know if he still is, married to Connie Huck.
I didn't know about that, actually.
Who was she was a Blue Peter presenter.
Yeah. No, when you said the name, I thought of a presenter, but I couldn't think who she was. But then you said Blue Peter. Now I can actually see it now. Yeah.
That silly bit, but yeah.
Okay. Well, there we are.
How's that
No, it's just interesting. It kills time as I'm trying to prepare. Right, Ed, so here we go.
Lieutenant Cole, welcome aboard. Crew, we have a new member of the team.
We meet again, Captain Daly! We're trapped.
Jesus,
Space Fleet never turns its back on those who need our help.
3 cheers for Captain Daly. Hip, hip, hooray! Hooray!
I mean, that's quite a short one there. I think the reason being it is, we'll explain, it is actually a thriller, isn't it? So obviously they can't give away too much on that. Otherwise, sort of gives it all away. But it was the first time you watched it yesterday. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what did you think of it overall?
I thought it's quite it's quite a unique because if you, I mean, when watching the trailer, you just think it's just another sort of in a bit like Galaxy Quest. It's going to be another sort of sci-fi show set in space. But it's kind of obviously like a thriller. It's an amalgamation of psychological thriller and like people's minds and stuff, but sort of taking the aspect of the sci-fi genre. And I guess for me, like I was thinking it's hard to say whether a parody or pastiche, but sort of taking the idea of sort of the fact that fans like us, well, not like us, but you know, like fans love to sort of cosplay or sort of play computer games. They like to immerse themselves in in fantasy of their favorite TV shows, and it's kind of like that's what this guy's doing without giving too much away to the who haven't watched it. You kind of it's kind of like taking it too far in a way. And it looks at the psychological aspect of it is kind of looking at I guess what happens when you do take it too far, and does it become too serious? Obviously, because he in the episode he takes he clones or takes the minds of his various colleagues and stuff for his own sort of fantasy. And kind of where do you draw the line between sort of just it just being a game to sort of becoming immersed in it, and obviously what happens at the end to him, to the actual guy, sort of that's the final consequence really. I won't say what happens because I might not.
No, I think like you said, yeah, no, I 100% do. I think it's weird, isn't it? I think like we were talking about again yesterday. I think like Galaxy Quest, it is a satire. I mean, Charlie Brooker is quite famous for all Black Mirror in some shape or form has this sort of satire message to it, where it does.
Black Mirror, I wouldn't know where it stands with it.
Well, there's loads of things. I mean, Charlie Brooker, he does a lot of satire to do with like social media, gaming, all sorts of politics, the political systems, all things like that. So relationships. He is the man of satire, basically. Black Mirror, overall, if you have seen it, you'll know what I'm saying. It is pretty much every episode has a sort of a satire element in it. And I would personally think that the USS Callister satire is all about sort of it's sort of how we are in the era of the geek or the nerd. We are in the it's sort of like like modern time now. I mean, the dominant male in some respects is the nerd, is the geek now, because the idea of how technology has advanced. How gaming is now mainstream entertainment. I mean, there was a time, obviously, gaming wasn't. I mean, you asked my father about gaming. My father said, well, he played games now and then, but people who loved games were, in a way, the weirdos, the freaks, wasn't in my dad's sort of gang, which I believe if me and you were back in those days, we probably would be in that gang, to be honest. But you know what I mean? It wasn't mainstream. I mean, we live in a world now where Star Wars is owned by the biggest company in the world, and everyone wears Star Wars t-shirts. Women wear Star Wars. I mean, when I was in school, I'm not you, Dan, when I was in school, I got made fun of for liking Star Wars, and now it's cool now, and I think it's that sort of, I think it's satire of how the world has changed, as in the geek is now in control. The geek is now the alpha male, but then it's weird, it has other elements in it. Like, for instance, the obviously he's the CEO, isn't he? The main character of this big company, this big computer company who produce games, and he's still this socially awkward person. Even though he's the boss, he's still very socially awkward with everyone he works with. And then he finds his way around now by building using his skills and building his own universe, which is based on his favorite TV show. And the TV show is definitely a pastiche of Star Trek, the way it is. It has a Captain Kirk character, it has a Spock character, it has a Sulu character, it has them all there, but obviously completely different production again. But it is definitely a pastiche, a copy of Star Trek. and he just, he builds his own world, and he, in a way, like you said, he takes it too far. So he actually, because if you haven't seen it, I don't want to give away too much. But basically, what it is, like, he takes the DNA off the people in the real world, and he uses that in order to write data and actually form a digital image of that person in this virtual world. So again, like Galaxy Quest, it has this sort of meta cinema element to it, where basically you have the real world, where they're all, obviously, he works in this big company as a CEO, where he's very socially awkward, but then he has his own private world, his imaginary world, where he enters, and he is then this confident sex icon, Captain Kirk sort of style character. And I think, I think, like I said, it takes it too far, and it definitely, I think I got clear there. But yeah, it's that idea of how the nerds sort of, like, I don't know, sort of dominating in society, and in a way using the world through their advantages as their sort of playground, if that makes sense. Yeah.
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 I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I sort of lost my trail of thought there, but yeah. But no, definitely. I think I said when you said it's gone too far, like how far can you go with it? I mean, because obviously their characters in the game are not necessarily real, in some respects. I mean, let's just say this was real at the moment. Let's just say this wasn't a TV program. Let's just say this is something that someone actually did. As in, like Star Trek as well. It has this sort of element in it in the program. Like I said, it is a satire or pastiche or parody, but it has this sort of element, like which copies off Star Trek, of questioning. Just questioning things in the real world. Like, for instance, in that TV program, it does sort of questions the idea of what makes you human, or what makes you real, or what makes you matter. And I think Star Trek shows that a lot, especially like we talked about a Data, and we talked about the Doctor and Voyager, and we talked about how they sort of question on, even though they're literally just light, or they're just a mechanical being, does that still not make them real, or does that not make them a person? And I think this has the same sort of question with it, as in, the idea is they're only sparks in a game, basically. They're just basically like Tomb Raider, I mean, that's all they are, really. However, they have the ability of rational thought, which he's given them in this game, so they can make their own choices. But then he's abusing that. He's bullying them in that game, and I think it has that sort of Star Trek sort of element in it, where it does has a lot. It's thought provoking, which Star Trek is thought provoking. You know what I mean? But it has that whole, I don't know, identity, what makes us human, sort of thought provoking element in it. Yeah. If that makes sense, yeah. It's a lot, yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah. No, absolutely right. Yeah.
They're definitely, definitely pastiche of Star Trek, and also in some ways, especially the start. I mean, the start starts off of it being just a sci-fi show. You know what I mean? And
which
we
sort
watch.
of makes you think it's a parody.
Yeah. And you do go, oh, he's the Captain Kirk character, he's the whatever character, And it does start off that. It does, start off as sort of a parody to Star Trek and the uniforms, and then obviously you realize, oh, actually it's a game, and then there's another element in it. Like I said, I like how he uses this whole meta cinema in order to play around with all these different elements, and also it's a massive satire, I'd say, of the just the era of the geek that we live in. I mean, the idea of Bill Gates, for instance, runs the world or something. We're all plugged into social media. I mean, Charlie Brooker as well. I can tell you a little bit more about him. He, like I said, a lot of his programs are quite satire based, but also he does one. He did a documentary about games. He's obsessed with games. He loves gaming. And it's another episode of Black Mirror I think you might like. I think it's the same season. And it's about gaming as well, how people go too far with gaming, and how far gaming could go in the future, and what people will use games for, which I think is quite interesting. Like the idea, I guess, the kind of idea, like you use GTA and people, rampage on it and they run people over, all that. And then in some respect, you got to think like, even though it's a game, is that still the right thing to do? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like got that sort of element to it, really. But Charlie Brooker, though, like I said, he talks a lot about gaming as such, and he was a document. Well, no, it was an interview. So it was an interview with him, and they were talking about his gaming documentary. And he actually he called social media a game. He said Facebook and Twitter are games. You do it to you post things, or you post pictures or whatever. You post things to get likes, to get attention, and it becomes a game of the world. Basically, the world is a game then. Like I said, it's the era of the geek era that everything is a game and everything is. I don't know. You know what I mean? It comes in a way. I mean, people sort of seem to compete, especially. You get a lot of teenagers who compete online. Who's got the coolest looking? I don't know. I can't think of any social media platforms though, but like Twitter or Instagram. That's the one I'm thinking of. That's the one I couldn't think of. It's called Instagram. How old are we? Or Instagram?
I know.
It's become that.
I mean, I'm hardly on Facebook.
I know. It's on now. What's it called? What do they call it, man? The old yeah. But you know what I mean. It's become that sort of virtual pretend world that people are an avatar on. They pretend to be someone different, or they pretend to be a hyper realistic version of themselves. And then also the whole idea said, like you said, I love that word, taking it too far. People again use social media and they say things to a friend or someone they hardly know they would never say in real life. People can say horrible things to people that they would never. I mean, this whole thing of trolling. I mean, you don't get that. I mean, people don't send you. Well, you don't walk down the street and people start hurling abuse at you, do you? But on the internet, for some reason, that seems to be fine. You know what I mean? And I think, especially me and you, when we grew up, I think cyberbullying was quite a new thing. Like, no one really knew. When the internet came out when we were younger, I mean, obviously it was a lot older than us, I understand that, but when it became sort of more accessible to like the common person, our school didn't really talk about, I don't know about yours, but we didn't talk about cyberbullying as much because it wasn't really a thing, or it was a thing, but they didn't really understand the powers of it. And then obviously years down the line, they're like, actually, cyberbullying, that's just as bad as actual bullying, in the playground. That's probably worse, because obviously it remains on that space, So I definitely think, even though Callister is sort of going off it really, but it is still a Star Trek pastiche, and he uses the idea of Star Trek, but in a way it opens up more doors of I guess this whole like the geek era, like which I think it's kind of like, you remember we were talking about, was it Ready Player One? It's kind of like that as well.
That's a really good film.
Yeah. Ready Player One again, it's like the idea of this whole industry is massive and it's controlled by a guy who's obsessed with just referencing his favorite pop culture references. Like he loves like Star Trek. I think I remember there's a bit in the film where he actually gets buried in like a Star Trek sort of setting, and it's it's all about science fiction and Star Trek, and this guy is obviously making billions and billions off people, and he's in a way controlling, and it's I really liked it as well. And I think using that whole Star Trek pastiche element in it as well, it's the reason obviously we're talking about it, but just brilliant. Anything else on there, or
no, not from me. I think you've covered it.
Yeah. All right then. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're gonna call it a day for now, because we talked loads today, didn't we?
We did, yeah. It's another long one this week.
Another long one. So what we're doing, we're gonna pick up this next week. Now we got, I think it's 3 more case studies that we are going to talk about. So please make sure you do tune in to listen more about these Star Trek parodies or pastiches, because I gotta say, I think it's one of my favorite ones that we've done. Oop, that's just a taste of next week. Oh no! There we go. Spoilers. There's a taster of next week there, but you'll hear all about that. Anyway, so again, so this is Matt and Dan, of course, in the House of Quark. You can watch us on Facebook at M&DHQ, M&DHQ on Facebook, or listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Radio Public, Breaker, Overcast, and Pocket Casts as well. So make sure you tune in to next week's. We have more about Star Trek parodies. I'm really excited. I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying this. I think it's nice to do something different, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It is very much very different. We've talked about Star Trek itself and it's all of its sort of variations of the series, and now we're talking about sort of
beyond, isn't it? To boldly go where no man's gone before. You see what I done there?
And next week should be fun as well. Obviously, the spoilers that we just saw. So, yeah.
But if you did see that little spoiler and you remember what it said, just go and watch it. There we go. Surprise there for you. All right, well, from me, Matt, and the lovely Dan, we say live long and prosper.